We online. Good morning, Kahal Kadosh, Beruchim Habaim to everybody. Friday, Erev Shabbat Kodesh, Perashat Pinchas, Makam Saba. Today, the 18th day of Tammuz, corresponding to the 10th day of July 2020. We hope that everybody had an easy and meaningful fast of the 17th of Tammuz. And Be'ezat Hashem, Hashem should help us that these 3 weeks of hardship and difficulties for Am Yisrael will reverse into days of salvation, celebration, joy, and happiness. Amen. Today's class has been graciously sponsored by our dear friend and member, Mr. Edwin David Aripol and family from Milano, Italy, Le'ilui Nishmat, his beloved uncle, Mr. Felix Rosabi Saadia Ben Aliza Alav Shalom, that tomorrow, Shabbat Kodesh, will be the Riyat. So in his honor, the family is dedicating the class in his loving memory. Now, before we go to the usual learning, I'd like to share with the Kahal something very beautiful that we come across in today's Perashah. And today's Perashah, Perashat Pinchas, besides having the heroic act of Pinchas, we have a whole segment, a whole chapter from chapter 28, verse 1, till the end of the Perashah. We're talking about 2 chapters and change, all related to the topic of the Korbanot, all the topics of sacrifices. The first one we discuss is the basic Korban Tamid, the daily sacrifice that was offered in the Bet HaMikdash. Then the next is about the offering of Shabbat, and then we come to the offering of Rosh Chodesh. And on this offering, I like to open the class to show how great Borei Olam pays attention even to small details. But today, God, Kavyachol, will be let's call it, the honored guest, because today we're going to talk about God. I know, it feels funny saying this publicly, we're going to talk about God. I mean, what do we need to say? We love Hashem, we feel Hashem, we sense Hashem. But today we're going to discuss about the sensitivity of God and how that sensitivity should be transferred to our life. And I have no doubts that if we are able to do that in our ways, in our level, in our life, especially at home, you'll see miracles and you'll see great things coming your way. So for those who love to follow it, it's the reading of Rosh Chodesh. The final paragraph, the Pasuk writes at the end, chapter 28, verse 15, Us'ir izim echad lechatat, and 1 male goat, sin offering to Hashem, al olat tamid ya'aseh venisko. In addition to the continual elevation offering shall be made with all the libations. I know that I'm using a lot of hard words, but today we're not going to discuss this. Bottom line, the Torah requests that on the day of Rosh Chodesh, there is a certain offering that we do on behalf of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's go quickly to Rashi. Rashi explains in this verse 15, a very interesting concept. And this is discussed already in the tractate in Masechet Shevuot, 1 volume of the Talmud that deals about promises and vows. Shevuah, it's from the word Shevuot, is from the word Shevuah. making a vow. A vow is a bit more strict than a promise. That is the reason why around the high holidays, before Elul, before the Shana, before Kippur, we do something called Hatarat Nedarim, the nullification of vows and promises, because it is not beneficial for the person to make a vow or a promise and not keeping it. The opposite. The faster a person keeps the promise or a vow, the faster the blessing flows into the person's life. The opposite is the same. So the Gemara in Shavuot discusses a very interesting concept not found throughout the laws of the sacrifices, which if you look, as I said before, from the Rosh Chodesh reading, we're going to go through every single offering of every holiday. Pesach, Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, Kippur, Sukkot, Chol HaMoed, Shemini Aseret, all this is found in this week's Torah portion. And the Gemara asks, why in this particular offering of Rosh Chodesh, the Pasuk says, Se'ir izim ehad lehatat la'Hashem, offer a male goat as a sin offering to the Almighty. So Rashi brings one of two answers. Answer number one says, Lelamedcha, to teach us, שמכפר על העוון, מקדש או קדשיו, שאין בו ידיעה, לא בתחילה ולא בסוף, שאין מכיר בחטא, אלא הקדוש ברוך הוא בלבד. Rashi says that there is a certain sin that a person commits that the person may not be aware that a sin is being committed. A person is thinking that he's doing a mitzvah. For example, coming into the Bet HaMikdash. A person or a Kohen that was impure was not allowed to come into the Bet HaMikdash. Or if a Kohen or that person, Israel, was tahor, but for some reason the sacrifice became tameh, that sacrifice cannot be eaten. But this is only as long as I know, or as long as the Kohen knows that he became tameh, and therefore he refrains of coming into the Bet HaMikdash, or an Israel is aware that he's tameh, and he doesn't come or he doesn't eat. But what happened if the person became impure, and the person didn't realize that was impure and therefore forbidden to eat of a sacrifice? Or if the person was physically impure, but the sacrifice became suddenly impure and you're not allowed to eat it, and guess what? The person thought, oh, it's in the Bet HaMikdash, everything is kosher, and the person ate it. So the person here made an innocent mistake, believing that he was tahor when he was not, or believing that the animal was tahor and he was not. So therefore, it says, only God knows she'en makir b'chet shechata ela kadosh baruch hu bilbad. Only God knows that this person made a sin unintentionally, obviously. So therefore, when we bring this sacrifice, takes care of all of the above. If I accidentally walk in the temple believing that I was tahor and I was not, or accidentally I ate a sacrifice, whatever I'm allowed to eat, and the animal wasn't suitable for consumption. These are accidents and these are innocent mistakes that a person bichlal at all was not aware that he was impure, and therefore God says not to worry. I know. So when you offer this korban, we'll take care of that. Not to worry. I know your intentions were holy and pure. You were not aware of it. But who can say that? Only God. This reminds us of something that I shared today in the next Zoom class. After the prayer, we have a virtual class. And we discuss about the story of Shmuel HaNavi. Samuel the prophet, Shmuel, when the Almighty asked him, I need a new king, go to the house of Ishai. And he saw the first son, and he was very impressed. And he says, this will be the king of Israel. God says, not qualified. Why not? He has a short temper. He gets upset very easily. He may take extreme decisions in the moment of upsetness, and that's not beneficial for the Jewish people as a leader and as a nation. Next one. He looks good, intelligent, Talmid Chacham, true, but he's very arrogant. He has an arrogant personality. And then there the Pasuk says, as you go by the sons of Ishai, that Shmuel, the prophet, he couldn't pick the correct son until finally David HaMelech needed to be asked to come when he was sent to the field because they felt embarrassed by David, the shepherd, before he became the king. And there I believe in the book of Shmuel says, Ki ha'adam ro'eh la'inayim, ve'Hashem ro'eh la'levav. There brings a powerful sentence that says, because the person can see only whatever the eyes are able to see, but the Almighty looks at the heart. And that's exactly what Rashi says. Only God knows that this person was impure. The person themselves believed that they were completely pure. This is a beautiful explanation by Rashi. But another secondary explanation, it says no. That actually the Torah is teaching us between the lines an atonement for God. Now you may say, Rabbi, hold on. Since when God makes sins? Since when God makes mistakes? What, God makes a sin and therefore we need to atone for the sin? So allow me to share this, because this is, I believe, a powerful Rashi and a powerful Gemara, that although you may have heard this in the past, but I personally never cease me to amaze how sensitive Borei Olam is, which is definitely something that we need to learn how to be more sensitive. And although when you say sensitive, that can have a positive or a negative connotation, but today the sensitivity that we are going to discuss is something to emulate, it is something to imitate. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, this is our mission in life. If you remember the famous Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, Tomer Devora, the one that we love so much, and we learned yearly, Baruch Hashem, for the past few years during the month of Elul. And what do we say? Opening statement, Ha'adam sarich lehidamot lekono. The person must emulate the Almighty. You may say, God is huge, God is big. True, we agree on all of the above. But guess what? In our limited essence as humans, we need to emulate that element of godliness into our life. And today we'll discuss about sensitivity. How sensitive the person needs to be for others, to avoid pain, to avoid words that, God forbid, can create a challenging situation, etc. So allow me to continue explaining this beautiful Rashi in today's parasha, and this is also being discussed in Masechet Shevuot and in Masechet Hulin. And it says as follows, very interesting. In the beginning of the creation, going back to Sefer Bereshit, the Pasuk says, Et shenei hameorot hagedolim, two luminaries were created, the sun and the moon. And we remember the famous dialogue that the moon had with the Almighty. And we learned this back in Perashah Bereshit, I believe. The moon comes to the Almighty and it says, "Dear God, how two kings can share the same crown?" Meaning to say, if the moon and the sun are exactly the same size, who is going to run the daytime and who is going to run the nighttime? So what God answers to the moon? Ve'eshiv la, lechi uma'ati et atzmech. Go, you gave me a great idea. Go and shrink yourself. Continues. Beitra'ama al-kach. And the moon wasn't happy. And we understand. And this is the way the reality is from the first week of the creation of the world till today. Not only that the moon in the star system, it's one of the smallest stars compared to the moon, to the sun rather. Okay, a planet, depends how you want to call it. But yet, we see that sometimes the moon is not visible. Sometimes we see a full moon when it comes to Birkat HaLevana, half a moon, quarter moon, and the moon is on the opposite parallel than the sun. When it's sunny here, it's dark on the west. When it's sunny on the west, it's dark on the east. So the sun rises from the east and goes to the west. And as the sun moves, so to speak, the moon comes up, comes until the sun made the entire rotation, I believe it's called. No, translation. There is rotation and translation. I believe that. I remember that from elementary school. And the sun goes to the west and the moon comes, so to speak, from the west to the east, etc. And this is how it works. And we go out every month, we say Birkat HaLevana. Birkat HaLevana, powerful blessing. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. God says, ביום זה שניכר כל כך מיעוטה, הביאו כפרה עליי. The Almighty says, you know, when we celebrate Rosh Chodesh, according to the Torah, Rosh Chodesh is determined by the moon. Kazeh ra'a bekadesh. The pasuk begins in Perashat Bo. Achodesh hazeh lachem Rosh Chodashim. There we are giving the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh. The Almighty shows Moshe Rabbeinu how the moon is and the position of the moon, the location of the moon to announce Rosh Chodesh. We need to remember that for centuries Rosh Chodesh was announced based on the eyewitnesses, not on a calendar. Until Shmuel came, until Hillel, I believe, Hillel, correct, not Shmuel. Hillel came and established the calendar, which is the calendar that we have till the day the Mashiach comes. And therefore, the entire Jewish calendar, it's based on the lunar calendar, meaning to say on the moon and not on the sun. The Gregorian is based on the sun, 365 all the time. In Judaism, it fluctuates because of the days of Rosh Chodesh, how many days the month have. An incomplete month is 29 days, a complete month is 30 days. So you are going to have a couple of days of differences between the Jewish calendar and the calendar of the world that they use today, known as the Gregorian calendar. Now, when Rosh Chodesh comes, we really don't see the moon much. That's why the Shabbat before Rosh Chodesh, we call it Shabbat Mevarchim, Shabbat that we bless. And what do? We announce when Rosh Chodesh will be. This is the official announcement when Rosh Chodesh will be. In many calendars, they have at the bottom of the page, they have something called the nolad. The nolad means the birth of the moon. Meaning to say, the moon goes to the half of the month, stays around full for a couple of days. As the day decline, meaning as the calendar days go down, and we're getting ready to welcome the next month, the moon disappears until there is nothing. And that's called the molad. Molad is from Lashon birth. The new moon is born, very small, and gradually it grows until the first week, which according to the Sephardic tradition, this is the earliest time to recite Birkat HaLevana. This is known as the blessing of the moon. Comes Rashi and it says that the Almighty said to the Jewish people, Heviu kapara alai, bring on my behalf an offering to atone my sin. That's the meaning of kapara alai. Kapara means my atonement. On what? Al shesiartiha umiati et hayareyah. It says, because of the pain and suffering that I caused to the moon, and I told her to shrink herself. And for this reason says, lehatat laHashem. The first opinion was for the sins that a person doesn't have a clue that they were committed. The second one, now it expands this beautiful pasuk to a whole new different level. So can you imagine that God still is thinking every month, what did I do to the moon? How could I have said such a thing to the moon? Hazit to the moon. I ask you a question. Let's say that husband and wife have some type of altercation, or people and friends. How long does it take us to apologize or to forgive? Once we do that, we move on. We don't revise a year later, I'm apologizing to you because a year ago, on the 18th day of Tammuz, I said something out of line to you. Can you imagine that we do that? I must recognize my shortcomings. I don't think that I ever did that. I'm not a saint. I have my package, my way of being. I try to work on it, but as a human, I have a couple of situations, hiccups. And we need to be honest with ourselves, and we need to be conscientious of our mistakes and recognize our mistakes and apologize to our spouses or apologize to whoever that may be. But once we apologize, we press the delete button and move on. God says no. How can I forget the pain and suffering that I caused to the moon? And then you may ask, by Rabbi, why so much? Make the calculation. 5,780 years the world is in existence. We had 12 months. Let's make an average. So we're talking about 5,700 times 12. That will give me at least perhaps 68,000 months. 70,000, you do the numbers, it's irrelevant. Don't text me, Rabbi, 5780 times 12 is, I'm not asking for that. And sometimes people do it. And you know what, we're not here for this. Do the calculation. Take the message. Don't nitpick on the tiny mathematical error that perhaps was made. We are humans at the end of the day. And it really doesn't change the message of the Torah. So can you imagine 60 70,000 times we apologize to the moon. I can give you a discount because the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh didn't happen until we left Egypt. So remove 2,448 years of history. Minus 5780, that should give you 3332. Multiply that times 12, that should give you close to 40-some thousand months. Okay, so 40,000 months. I give you even a bigger discount. Easy number to write on a check. 40,000 months in human history, and every month, please moon, forgive me. Please moon, forgive me. Please moon, forgive me. The answer is that because Rosh Chodesh is based on the position of the moon and the essence of the moon, so God feels the pain of the moon. Here we go again. The Jewish people are going out to check me out, to look at my position, to look at my location, and they announce Rosh Chodesh, and they make se'udot, and they drink wine, and ladies take the day of Rosh Chodesh as a day of personal holiday, the way we discussed in the past. And what about me, the moon says? I'm chopped liver. I was removed from my position of kingdom. And you celebrate? This is an added reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs to ask us indirectly, you understand what I'm trying to say, to bring an offering to atone for a statement that he gave to the moon. What a beautiful lesson. What a powerful lesson. Can you imagine apologizing 40,000 times? We cannot imagine even apologizing 4 times. 4 times could be, but you understand the message. Sensitivity towards others, it's important. Because what may not be apparent to us, that what we said or done could be a big deal, but maybe for the victim or for that individual, that could be a big deal. And that's why there is a beautiful Mishnah in Pirkei Avot that says, Al tadin et havercha ad shetagia linkomo. Don't judge your friends until you are in their shoes. It's very easy to judge. It's very easy to execute. It's very easy to point the finger. But our Torah teaches us completely the opposite. What a lesson, what a lesson. And it's interesting enough that throughout the Torah, we have come across scenarios in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with all its holiness and greatness and kingdom and world management, so to speak, yet shows us an area of self-improvement or acting in a way, like also in Bereshit, talks about the creation of mankind. And what the Pasuk says, Na'aseh Adam kesalmenu kidmutenu. Let us make men in our format and in our image. And Rashi asks a question. Who is God talking to? Let us make men in our format, in our image. God needs to ask for an advice. Rashi says, Mikan, I believe that this is the language, Mikan ata lomer an tavuto shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's verify this, what I'm saying. The Pasuk says from here, Rashi says, from here you learn the humility of the Almighty. Now, the humility of the Almighty, what kind of humility are we talking about? It says the humility of consulting with someone that is younger than you. And here younger means God, Hashem, asking the Malachim, angels, I'd like to create a person. What do you think about it? Can you imagine such a dialogue? It's like you ask your child, I'd like to buy this house. I'd like to buy this stock. I'd like to invest in this commercial real estate. What do you think, son? Are you going to do that? Most likely not. But what happens if your son is not a child? Your son is experienced. Your son was raised close to you. There is nothing wrong to ask. And this goes especially to rabbis. Rabbis need to have the humility of being able to ask questions when they face questions which are not common or which are difficult to answer based on different type of circumstances. It happened to me yesterday. I got a phone call about a medical procedure for fertility treatment, which this is something that it has become in some cases a necessity, but it's important to know that halachic precautions must be taken. And it's not the first time that we deal with this, but this came with a very peculiar situation. So when this person called me up, I said, you know what? I hear the question. I need to make a phone call or two before I can answer you. And the most beautiful part of it is not only that, Baruch Hashem, I was able to make the right phone call and the halakhic research and found this written in a Teshuvah of Hacham Rabbi Yosef, but then we learn a couple of more halachic details which are relevant to this particular question. And the question was, don't do it. You have to wait because of halachic times, etc. But the most beautiful part of it is that this couple that is looking to bring a child to the world were open from the beginning. Rabbi, whatever decision we are given from this halachic question, we are willing to follow, because we understand that it's not only about us having a child, but it's also bringing a child to the world between the parameters of holiness and the parameters of halacha. What a beautiful mindset that this young couple has. And Be'ezat Hashem will pray that whatever treatment, we pray that they should have a child by natural means. But if, God forbid, that doesn't happen, whenever they're going to decide to do the treatment with all the halachic supervisions and ramifications, it should be crowned with success, etc. And this is what Rashi says, that Borei Olam, so to speak, consulted with the angels. We find a similar concept, the Talmud tells us, when it came to appointing Betzalel. God selected Betzalel, which was the grandson of Miriam, the son of Hur. Hur was actually executed yesterday on the Ta'anit, or the night before the Ta'anit of the 17th of Tammuz. He is the one that protested against the Jewish people. How dare you're going to do an idol? And regretfully, when he protested, he was executed. His son was given the zechut of being the one who actually was the architect of the Mishkan. But he was a child. He was 12 years old, blessed with godly intelligence in this field. And God selected Betzalel to be the one build the Mishkan. God says to Moshe, Ra'ui lefanecha Betzalel? Moshe, do you think that Betzalel could be a good candidate to build the Mishkan? Moshe says, Im hagun lefanecha, lefanai lo kol shiken. If you, God, approve the application, you need to ask me. God says to Moshe, go and consult with the Jewish people. If they are willing to take Betzalel, with Ahiezer ben Achisamach to be in the driving force of the building of the tabernacle. What was the beautiful answer of the Jewish people? Moshe, if God approved the application and you approve the application, don't you think that we're going to approve it as well? So if it's good for you, it's good for me. But this is the beauty of our Torah, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of Moshe Rabbeinu, of the humility that they had in order to consult, in order to ask, in order to learn to say, excellent question, I do not know the answer. With that being said, the Zohar of today, I read it before, and I'll be honest with you, very deep, and to my limited knowledge, I don't know what to say on what the Zohar says. But I can tell you from the few words that I understood, it's the continuation of what we learned last week. Last week, the Zohar mentioned that the word Shabbat, it has the letter Shin, and the three vavs of the Shin on top represent Abraham, Ishaq, and Yaakov. That I was able to decipher from the Zohar. Many things in between I could not, but one thing I did understand. The Zohar HaKadosh of today says the importance of on the day of Shabbat being happy. Ismach Moshe, Ismehu b'malchutach. The concept of happiness that a person needs to experience on a Shabbat. And that is the reason why on Shabbat, God forbid, if somebody is in Avelut, lo aleinu velo alechem, on Shabbat, some of the laws move to the side. Not all the laws, but some of the laws move to the side. Why? Because the power of the Shabbat is so great that even pushes away personal unfortunate moments. But the Zohar Kadosh says, do you know why there is an added level of happiness when Shabbat comes? And not only the happiness is because we don't go to work to the office and we don't drive and we don't travel and all our machinery and equipment and gadgets are put on the side and we live all natural, so to speak, without any technological distraction, etc. The Zohar Kadosh says because there is an aura of peace and harmony that comes down to the world in honor of Shabbat Kodesh, which this in a way we understand among the many reasons why do we say Shabbat Shalom. And there are many reasons, but one of the reasons the Zohar says, very simple, because when the Neshama Yetera, the added soul, remember last week we spoke about the showering and dressing up in honor of Shabbat? So today the Zohar Kadosh says that the added part of the Neshama to the person, to the soul of the person, it creates the reaction, and it says that we have the power to remove all sadness and all anger that a person may have experienced throughout the weekdays. And therefore on Shabbat there is the necessity of happiness and joy. The Zohar Kadosh also talks about the concept of Shalom. Thank you so much. The concept of Shalom that can be said in the prayer of Ashkivenu. On Shabbat night, we have a different version of the Ashkivenu prayer that we say every weeknight. During the weeknight prayers, we ask Hashem for salvation, protection, well-being, and all protections. And since I have the Siddur in front of me, let's read it quickly. What are we praying for? Right here. We're praying, Hashem, help me, save me from enemies, from pestilence, from swords, from illness, from suffering, from tragedy, from famine, from destruction, from anxiety, from a plague. These are the things that we pray for every weeknight in the Shkivenu prayer. Check it out in your Siddur at home. Comes Shabbat, much shorter text, and what do we say? Ufros aleinu sukat shelomecha, and spread over us your protection of peace. Ve'agem ba'adenu, and shield us. Ufros aleinu, and spread over us. Be'al Yerushalayim irach, and over Yerushalayim your city. Sukat rahamim be'shalom, a shelter of compassion and peace. Baruch atah Hashem hapores. Blessed be you, the Almighty, Hashem, the one who spreads a protection of peace over us, be'al kol amo Israel, and over his entire people Israel, be'al Yerushalayim, Amen, and over the city of Yerushalayim, and we say Amen. The Zohar HaKadosh writes, and it says that when we say this prayer, we are finalizing the welcoming of the Shabbat into our lives, and that brings the essence of Shabbat Shalom. Not only the peace in our life, that's the reason why we say Shalom Aleichem when it comes to the angels. Friday night, we say Shalom Aleichem, peace upon you, the angels. And we make the Kiddush and the beautiful things that we do at home. I'm sure everybody does it. But it says, on Shabbat, stay away from the anger. If any day of the year anger is wrong, and any time that a person gets angry, it requires teshuvah, like it or not, it requires teshuvah and recognition and attempting, God willing, to have self-control in the future when situations come up. On Shabbat, at all costs, sadness and anger must be kept away from our life, from our home. And that's one of the reasons why we say Shabbat Shalom, to bring the peace upon us, which guess what? Our peaceful Shabbat in our homes, at our synagogues, it creates a mirror image that in the zechut of our Shabbat observance and celebration, the heavenly judicial system goes also into recess for all the souls that regretfully they need to be judged in the heavenly court, etc. On a different note, a very beautiful, short and powerful message from the Musar of today brings a very famous pasuk from Shlomo HaMelech, Mishle, a pasuk that we have learned together in the past, that says, Bechol derachecha da'ehu. In all your ways you get to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what does he bring here? He brings here anger. I didn't write this. This happens to be the menu of the day. So if you have any issues with it, go to Sefer Hasidim and go to the Zohar and ask him why you talk about anger twice in the same day. That's the menu of the day. So it says that even when a person is going to get angry, that anger needs to be measured. And the anger, we should avoid anger at all times. But sometimes, perhaps a person needs to show a certain level of anger when something wrong was done. If it's at a community level, or if it's at a personal level, it doesn't mean that you're going to lose control of the situation and act in an irrational and inappropriate way. But it says even that needs to be calibrated and with a true intention that is only an external showing of unacceptance or disapproval and cannot move on, God forbid, into something worse. Not only that, שתהא דעתו מיושבת עליו, אלא רק ייראה כלפי חוץ. Internally, peace, harmony. Externally, you say, I'm not happy about it. I cannot accept what happened. That doesn't mean that you're going to transfer that external statement internally. I'm not saying that it's very easy. There are some people that, God forbid, may have an issue with anger and they act and they talk and they scream in a way which is unacceptable and forbidden. Continues the Musar of today. And it says, in every way of life, in every step of life, the person must measure their reactions. Sometimes certain situations require an extreme reaction. For example, Moshe and the Luchot. Remember the yesterday reason of the Ta'anit, the sin of the golden calf. And Sefer Hasidim says, it says, how is it possible that Moshe Rabbeinu broke the Luchot when they are written by the Almighty? And he answered, Moshe Rabbeinu did it with the following calculation. Moshe Rabbeinu says, if I leave the 10 commandments, the Luchot, visible, so the Luchot, the 10 commandments and the Torah, will be the star witness for the Almighty to judge the Jewish people. But if I get rid of the proof, I break the Luchot, there is no witness against the Jewish people. I'm going to be liable, Moshe says, for breaking the Luchot, breaking the creation of God. I'm willing to go down in history